Okay, so Howie Roseman spoke at the NFL annual meeting today. He talked about not being done, with the safety position being high on his list still. He also talked about James Bradbury and all the cornerbacks and mentioned a possible trade. That's not all. He gave his take on why he brought in every single free agent, from Saquon Barkley to CJ Johnson to Bryce, Huff, Devin White. He talked about them all. And last but not least, the NFL is banning the hip drop tackle? Huh? What is going on, everybody? I go by Philly Mike, and this is the Philly Talk Podcast. And today we got a lot to get into. But before we do that, Eagle Nation, can I ask y'all for a quick favor? Help your boy out. Hit that like button, subscribe if you are new, and turn on that notification bell so you don't miss the videos. So Howie Roseman commented on his big free agency, but he also talked about not being done. The safety is still high on the Eagles' priority list. According to NFL rumors, Bills are not shutting the door on bringing back safety Micah Hyde. However, there has been reports of interest from the Colts, Eagles, and Jets. I think this is a worst case scenario because, once again, as is being reported, the Eagles still have their eye on Justin Simmons, just trying to get that price down to the perfect spot. Again, every day he's on the market, it's just that much better for the Philadelphia Eagles. Moving on to former Eagles wide receiver Quez Watkins, he's signing with the Pittsburgh Steelers per source. We all know that he wasn't going to come back due to the fact that the Eagles already signed 2 free agent wide receivers, Devontae Parker to a 1-year deal, and a speedster who, similar to Quez Watkins, came out the draft in 2019, ran a 4.31, Paris Campbell, who, if you look at his 2022 season, it was similar to the 2021 season of Quez Watkins as that third wide receiver. However, Paris Campbell, I think, has the deeper route tree, and some of them footballs that we needed Quez Watkins to catch in 2022 and 2023, Paris Campbell will catch them. So I just want to say good luck to Quez Watkins on your new football team. As for another wide receiver the Eagles could possibly have, Philadelphia Eagles Central said a mock draft by Pro Football Focus has the Eagles selecting Texas wide receiver Xavier with their first-round pick. I know some of y'all really want to draft Xavier. I think it would be real fun offense with A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, and Xavier. But if we consider drafting him, it would have to be with one of the second-round. Did some things in free agency, but the draft should be dedicated to the defense. While we're talking about the draft, let's take a look at the reported top 30 visits from the Eagles thus far, starting with the offensive side of the ball. Christian Mahongi, offensive lineman out of Boston College. Cooper Bebe, offensive lineman out of Kansas State. Travis Glover, offensive lineman out of Georgia State. Tyler Guyton, offensive line out of Oklahoma. Brandon Coleman, offensive line out of TCU. Zach Zinter, offensive line out of Michigan. A. Smith, wide receiver out of Texas A&M. And Brendan Rice, wide receiver out of USC. And of course, Brendan Rice, related to the great Jerry Rice. Moving on to the defensive side of the ball, Christian Boyd, defensive lineman out of Northern Iowa. Latu Latet, edge rusher out of UCLA. Edrin Cooper, linebacker out of Texas A&M. Trevin Wallace, linebacker out of Kentucky. And Cooper DeJean, cornerback out of Iowa. The one thing we do know is that Howie Roseman and the Philadelphia Eagles take the top 30 very serious. Look at some of the guys that were drafted the last few years. They were all top 30 visits on the open market. And then you put into the dynamic of, has the pendulum swung so far at this position? I mean, the guy touches the ball 300 times a year, hopefully. There's not a lot of other players, skill position players, that are touching the ball that many times and have that effect. It's also important to note that the NFL did ban the hip drop tackle, which I think is absolutely insane. How are you going to tackle the Derrick Henrys of the world, the Saquon Barkleys of the world, if you can't drop your weight? The referees are going to have tough decisions because it's all about their opinion on the tackle. Torrey Smith said it best. What is a hip drop tackle? Anyone that is tackling someone bigger typically drops their weight. Folks have been doing this for years. Their dad, uncle, big brother in living rooms for years. It's natural to do that while tackling someone bigger than you. Imagine this play. Darius Slay gets called for a flag and the Cowboys end up winning because of it. 2024 is going to be a real interesting year, and I don't know if I'm going to like it. Moving on to Howie Roseman on the idea of the Eagles missing CJ Johnson's mentality and personality. He said, that would be accurate to say. We're looking to gain our swagger and mentality back. Obviously, what happened at the end of the year didn't feel good, wasn't acceptable for any of us. You get players who can bring that and have that motivation and that mentality. Speaking of CJ Gardner-Johnson, Eliot Shore-Parks tweeted the Chauncey Gardner-Johnson cap hits. In 2024, it's only a $2.6 million cap hit. In 2025, it's a $4 million cap hit. In 2026, it's a $5.13 million cap hit. The deal has $10 million guaranteed, void years from 2027 to 2030 that help stretch out the money / lower cap hits. It's very little dead money if cut after 2024. How does Howie Roseman get away with this? Shh, I don't know. I don't care. Keep doing it, bro. Let's hear what Howie Roseman had to say about the cornerback situation in general. Eagles remain bullish on Darius Slay. Unbelievable job when we had him on a #1 receiver last year, Roseman said. It's no secret that James Bradberry didn't have the year the team expected. Eagles aren't talking around that. He's driven the show. He's the player that he was in 2022, Roseman said. Optimism about Kelee Ringo, who cost the Eagles their 2024 third-round pick. Eagles also thought Eli Ricks showed promise. There's hope that Isaiah Rodgers is reinstated. Tyler Hall is someone the Eagles once wanted to sign off Raiders practice squad, and they're curious about him. But the big reminder from Howie Roseman again, it's March 25th. We'll see where it ends up here as we go through the process. The draft presents an opportunity, of course, but don't sleep on the possibility of a trade. Remember, last video I dropped, I talked about Jake Rabati of the NFL mentioning the possibility of the Eagles trading for young star cornerback J.C. Horn. And it's funny how he gets to speak. He talks a little bit about the draft, talks about the players on the roster. He mentions we're going to see what happens with Bradberry, but he also talks about a trade a couple of days after the internet was brewing about Howie Roseman going to get J.C. Horn. Could it be happening? Stay tuned and find out. Now, before we hear what Howie Roseman had to say about Zach Baum, Kenny Pickett, Bryce Huff, Oren Burks, and Devin White, let's hear a word from our sponsor. Eat stress-free this spring with Factor's delicious, ready-to-eat meals. Every fresh, never frozen meal is chef-crafted, dietitian-approved, and ready to eat in just 2 minutes. Choose from a weekly menu of 35 options, including our popular options like Calorie Smart, Keto, Protein Plus, or Vegan and Veggie. Also discover more than 60 add-ons every week, like breakfast, on-the-go lunch, snacks, and beverages to help you stay fueled and feel good all day long. What are you waiting for? Get started today and fuel up on your springtime goals. 2-minute meals, fuel up fast with Factor's restaurant quality meals that are ready to heat and eat whenever you are. Honestly, what I love most about Factor is they're really ready when you are. 2-minute meals, and you could tailor them to your schedule. Customize your weekly meals, and they're flexible. Pause them, add more, subtract some. You could do whatever you need. Working a full-time job plus doing YouTube, Factor makes it so much easier on me. I can't believe I didn't have this sooner. Head to Factor75.com or click the link below and use code PhillyMike50 to get 50% off your first Factor box and 20% off your next box. That's code PhillyMike50 at Factor75.com to get, again, 50% off your first box plus 20% off your next box while your subscription is active. You can't beat that. I'm telling you, I love mine. Go get yours. So let's start the second half with Howie Roseman on Devin White. This is a guy who's a captain, obviously has been a tremendous player. He fits what we're looking for. A guy who was incredibly motivated, understands there are guys in free agency who 2 years ago didn't have good years and come back 2 years later and have a huge contracts in terms of Vic Fangio and what he does. He's looking for speed. He's looking for explosiveness, which Devin certainly has. No doubt about that. Plus, again, the Devin White interview was crazy. He's definitely playing with a chip on his shoulder, and he said last year wasn't me, and all I want to do is go out there and prove it. Howie Roseman on Zach Baum, who was a targeted player for the Eagles at the start of free agency. Vic Fangio, when he went to Miami last year, had a player with a similar skill set that hadn't really ascended yet. You saw that guy in Vic's defense has the ability to play off the ball, has the ability to play on the edge, has the tools in his body, really ascended under Vic. We think Zach's a versatile player who can rush from the edge, can play off the ball, tremendous special teams player. We were excited he was a targeted guy for us. Howie won't name the player comparison because he's on a different team, but it's Andrew Van Ginkel. Both Baum and Van Ginkel played the same role at Wisconsin too. Again, that's Vic Fangio knowing what his player strengths are and getting them to play his best ball, as he done for multiple players. Again, Justin Simmons loves Fangio, and that's why I'm waiting for the reunion. It's going to happen sooner or later. Mark my words, or I'll be a little upset, to be honest. Howie on Oren Burks. He's someone the Eagles liked at the start of free agency, and when they looked at the list one weekend, Burks was hanging around. Eagles wanted to address linebacker this offseason and saw a former special teams captain who has played meaningful defensive snaps. Again, this is just a solid depth move from Howie Roseman, beefing up the position we are weak at. Let's hear what Howie Roseman had to say on the Kenny Pickett situation. Kenny's a talented guy who, like all quarterbacks in the draft, we do work on him. Just because you never know when you're going to have the opportunity to get those guys and to continue to build depth throughout the roster with talented guys at maybe the most important position in sports, we thought it just made sense. And again, hopefully we don't need him. Jalen Hurts plays healthy all 17 games. But at the end of the day, I think Kenny Pickett, not a starter, but a quality backup. And last but not least, Howie Roseman on Bryce Huff. Heavy-handed, understands leverage, his explosiveness in his body. The Jets did an unbelievable job of having that edge rusher position really filled with 5 or 6 guys. When I look at their depth chart, Joe did a great job of bringing those guys in. They were trying to find roles and find playing time based on the amount of guys they had. First-round picks, guys with big contracts. We see it on tape. We obviously believe in. Also, we want to be deep at our edge guys. 90% of the time, we believe in having these fastballs off the edge and getting guys in the game. I think his perception that he's a liability against the run, obviously we'll see that, but we know he has the tools in his body to make a difference, and we're excited about him. Again, 10 sacks and playing only 47% of the snaps. I think once given his opportunity with the rotation we have, and I'm still including Hassan Reddick until Howie Roseman trades him, which Howie Roseman did not talk about Hassan Reddick. He opted to keep it as we'll see what happens. Bryce Huff, alongside of the D tackle room with the Eagles rotation, is going to thrive. With all that being said, I go by Philly Mike, and this is the Philly Tall Podcast. Do your boy a favor and hit that like button. Subscribe if you are new, and turn on that notification bell so you don't miss the video. Go get your Factor food. The great Factor food is available by clicking the link in the description and fill it out. Again, you can get 1 week, 2 weeks, 6 meals, 12 meals. Do what you got to do. Leave the muscle emoji and all your thoughts. I love hearing from y'all. We out.